How are you doing? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, the founder of the highest paid part-time job in the world options trading program. What we're going to do is we're going to break down this Joe Rogan situation. And what I'm going to do is give you a very unique perspective. I'm going to show you, right, how to look at this situation as a trader from a fundamental analysis standpoint. We're going to also go into some technical analysis because it is my goal to try to show you how you can leverage these type of situations to potentially profit from the situation. So what's going to make me different than everybody else is going to talk about this is why everybody else is going to talk about this to build an audience because they want to get paid. I'm going to try to show you how you can use this situation so you can get paid off of it. So if that's what you're interested in, you need to watch the whole breakdown, right? You may need to look into the particular offer that is going to be pinned in this particular stream. But this offer in this particular video is for that person. So the people that just want to hear about this because they want to be monetized, that's cool. I'm making this video for the people that want to understand how they can potentially monetize this situation for themselves in this group. So let's go ahead and get into it. So let me share out this video real quick and let's go ahead and take off, right? Because I know I'm late. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get right to it. We're not going to do a lot of extra talking.
I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly. There's a video that's out that's a compilation of me saying the N-word. It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast, and it's all smushed together, and it looks fucking horrible, even to me. Now, I know that to most people, there's no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And I agree with that now. I haven't said it in years, but for a long time, when I would bring that word up, like if it would come up in conversation instead of saying the N-word, I would just say the word. I thought as long as it was in context, people would understand what I was doing. Like that context was part of the clip we were talking about Red Fox, how Red Fox said that word on television in the 1970s and how times have changed so much since then. Or about how Richard Pryor used it as one of the titles of one of his albums. Or I was quoting a Lenny Bruce bit, or I was quoting a Paul Mooney bit, or I was talking about how Quentin Tarantino used it repeatedly in Pulp Fiction. Or I was talking about how a Netflix executive, ironically, used it because he was trying to compare it to another offensive word and he said it out loud and they fired him. Not calling anybody or just saying the word out loud. I was also talking about how there's not another word like it in the entire English language because it's a word where only one group of people is allowed to use it and they can use it in so many different ways. Like if a white person says that word, it's racist and toxic, but a black person can use it and it could be a punchline. It could be a term of endearment. It could be lyrics to a rap song. It could be a positive affirmation. It's a very unusual word, but it's not my word to use. I'm well aware of that now, but for years I used it in that manner. I never used it to be racist because I'm not racist, but whenever you're in a situation where you have to say, I'm not racist, you fucked up. And I clearly have fucked up. And that's my intention to express myself in this video, to say, there's nothing I can do to take that back. I wish I could. Obviously, that's not possible. I do hope that, if anything, that this can be a teachable moment. Because I never thought it would ever be taken out of context and put in a video like that. And now that it is, holy shit, it looks bad. And it's part of also me doing this podcast for thousands of hours, thousands of episodes over 12 years. I said a lot of fucking stupid shit, which is fine when you're talking about most things, but not when you're talking about race.
Okay, so I'm not going to play his whole apology because I don't really think that's necessary. It is what it is. And so that's the apology he came out with this morning. this afternoon, and was really crazy because I was on Twitter on a guy's page that just pretty much talks Tesla all the time. He's a former, I think, manager of a particular fund. And it came on his timeline. I would have never known it came out because I don't really care anything about Joe Rogan at all. I'm not for or against the guy. I really don't care. However, I don't really think that's the most egregious thing he said. And I'm getting ready to play something else for you, which I really think kind of gets you to understand the mind of this particular individual more than him saying the N-word and what he thinks is a comedic situation, right? So let me go ahead and get into that. So let me cue that up real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get into that particular video, because I think this describes who this guy is more than him just saying the N-word, right? Let me go ahead and cue this thing up real quick.
What are you? Yeah.
Dad's black, mom's white. Standard issue, pretty much.
Powerful combination genetic wise, right? You get the body of the black man, and then you get the mind of the white man all
Right.
together in some
Yeah.
strange combination. That
Starting
doesn't,
lineup was
by the
mixed.
way, mean that black people don't have brains. It's
No.
a different brain.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. What are you? Yeah.
Dad's black, mom's white. Standard issue, pretty much.
Powerful combination genetic wise, right? You get the body of the black man, and then you get the mind of the white man all
Right.
together in some
Yeah.
strange combination. That
Starting
doesn't,
lineup was
by the
mixed.
way, mean that black people don't have brains. It's
No.
a different brain.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. What are
Okay, so, and to my opinion, the second video that I played is worse than the first video. Joe Rogan reminds me of these kind of guys. A lot of them are white guys. They have like an athletic background. Many of them may have played sports. And they believe things, and this is very much a popular narrative in American society amongst certain people, is that black people are genetically different. Even though what's weird is that black Americans, many of them, majority of us have white genetics, either regardless of whether or not our direct parents are white because of our experience in this particular country. But they believe things that black people are genetically different, and that makes them superior in certain areas and also makes them inferior in other areas. And they believe stuff like this because they believe that 400 years of chattel slavery made black people superior in other areas, but made black people inferior. So they look at sports and say, well, you know what? Black people are really good in sports because of 400 years of chattel slavery. Well, to be realistic, most black people are terrible at sports. We can't take the outliers like LeBron James or the Steph Currys or the Henrys and assume that we can infer for every black people. Most black people are terrible at sports, right? However, they believe this type of stuff, and they think, well, if I say that black person XYZ is really, really good at sports because of their genetics, I believe I'm giving them some type of compliment. This is how guys like this think. I've been around guys like this because I grew up my whole life playing sports in the South, and you get guys that say this type of things because they have to try to figure out a way or why athlete A that is black is so good, and they don't want to go into, well, because he just essentially has dedicated his life to being good. So if you listen to a guy like Kobe Bryant, and he talks about how much work he did to become successful at basketball, they don't want to include that. It got to be, well, Kobe's just a great athlete. Quiet as kept, Kobe really was not a superstar athlete compared to like a Vince Carter or Michael Jordan. Kobe just at a really young age dedicated himself to being really good at basketball. But we can't say that because the narrative has to be black people are genetically superior physically, but are genetically inferior intellectually. But we make it seem like it's a compliment when we're telling a black person, well, you're really good because you just got great genetics. And that's what I was talking about people the other day, where I was saying that when I was coming up, they said black people were good sprinters because of genetics. And then all of a sudden, all these Eastern Africans started coming over here and winning long distance events. And then they couldn't say that anymore because not only were black people winning sprints, they was also winning long distance events. So that's what people got to understand is he's that kind of guy. I've been around guys like this before. It can never be that you're good at what you do because you worked at it and you committed yourself to it. It has to be that you got a genetic advantage. And what you got to understand is that when they're creating this narrative, they also mean that you have a genetic disadvantage. So they believe you're genetically advantaged in areas that require physical strength and being physical. But they also believe that you have a disadvantage in guys in areas that require you to have an intellectual ability. So that's why when you as a black person, you buy into this, well, black people are good at sports because of 400 years of child slavery. That's BS because you don't understand genetics. You know, you need to start with like Mendel's law of genetics, which teaches you plant genetics and build yourself up, right? Because most black people are terrible at sports. So it got nothing to do with chattel slavery. Most black people are under 6 foot tall, right? So it got nothing to do with chattel and slavery. And then we also got to add into the fact that most black people inside the United States, majority of them also have white genetics because of our experience in this country. So it's not just all black people are just black on top of black. Most black people got white genetics, which is why we look different than the majority of black people in the rest of the world. Just like if you go to Brazil, their black people look different than the majority because of the fact that they've been mixed with other people. So that's what people got to really understand. So he's this kind of guy. I don't have a problem with it. So I'm not here to comment on that. It's just I've seen this kind of guy before. I know what Joe Rogan's going to do before he does it. What we're going to talk about now is the impact to Spotify. Because I like this. Once this came out this week, I'm excited now because I see opportunity. So I'm not here to play Republican, Democrat, conservative. I'm here to play money. That's what I'm here for. Now, I can't guarantee you that you're going to make any money out of this situation. What I want to do is teach you about situational trading. This is a great situation fundamentally because we're going to talk about what's going on with Spotify, why they brought this guy into their camp, right? And where we may have to go with this scenario based on their response to it. Because what we're seeing with this scenario is it's starting to build up momentum, right? Because I didn't think it was going to go this far. I thought there's a little scenario with the little situation with the pandemic stuff that came out. It was going to die down. What we're seeing is this thing may start to get into a momentum phase. And based on everything that else that's going on with Spotify, it's not about Joe Rogan. It's about Spotify. But what he can do is be part of the momentum. And that's what we want to look for. So as a fundamental person that analyzes things fundamentally, you want to take everything that's going on in the situation and ask yourself, where do I think this situation is going based on all these particular factors? So Joe Rogan now has become a factor that can act on Spotify. It's about Spotify. It's not about Joe Rogan, right? And we're going to kind of show that. In the long game, Joe Rogan is really just a player on a big board, a big chessboard. Because we don't really understand how this game is played, we think Joe Rogan is the guy. He's not the guy. He's just somebody that's in position now. And if he doesn't work for what Spotify wants to do, they'll take somebody else and put them in that position. Because Spotify is trying to institutionalize themselves. And they'll pay Joe Rogan $100 million to help them institutionalize themselves. But if he can't help them, then they'll get rid of Joe Rogan and put somebody else in that position. That's how this game is played. So the average person is going to get caught up on Joe Rogan. I don't want you to get caught up on that. What I want you to get caught up on is the institution or the company that aspires to be an institution and what's going on with them and then how Joe Rogan may impact them based on what's going on. So let's get into it. Let's talk about some of the actual trading opportunities that may exist. I can't guarantee that you're going to make any money off of this. I'm not telling you what plays to make. You need to be able to look at this and analyze it, right? And to determine what you want to do. My goal is to try to help you analyze this from a different scenario. Because like I said before, my platform is based around you looking at this and seeing the opportunity, right? From a monetization standpoint, as opposed to me creating the content and I get paid off the audience, but the audience don't get no money. I'm trying to help you look at these scenarios and figure out, okay, I can get money off of this because of 1, 2, 3. Not just I got a big audience and I get money off the content and y'all don't get no money, right? Because that's what Spotify has. That's not what I'm trying to build here. So let's get into it, right? Let me go ahead and share this screen out. Let's go to the window. Okay. So that's that. So let's don't worry about the Pirate Bay right now. What we're going to do is look at the chart for Spotify. So here's Spotify's chart. Now, what I want to ask people right now is, do you see the chart breaking down? Right? I'm going to ask that question. Do you see the chart breaking down? And if you don't see it, you need to look at this chart all weekend. Right? Look at the chart all weekend till you see the chart breaking down. If you're in my course and you don't see the chart breaking down, what you need to do is look at the videos on technical analysis, watch those videos 5 times each video, and then look at the chart again, right? So if you don't see the chart breaking down, you should be able to find where the resistance is at. You should be able to find where the support is at, not only on this is the weekly candles, right? Let's also go to the monthly candles, right? You should be able to see the chart breaking down, and then we can go back to the daily, right? So the first thing we're going to start with is this chart. So this is Spotify on the yearly. This is the yearly chart, right? Don't like the candles on this, but this is the yearly chart, right? So pretty much late 2020, there was around 129. They're trading at around 174 now. Their high, let me go back to the weekly because that chart is a lot easier to look at. Their high was around 350, and that was around 2021. Their high was around 350. That's pretty much where they peaked out. So the question is, do you see the chart breaking down? If you don't see the chart breaking down, I would tell you to just keep looking at the chart until you see it, right? Because the chart is breaking down. Okay, so this is the first thing I want you to understand. That's the first thing. We're going to look at the chart. What Spotify is trying to do right now is they're trying to move into being a publisher, a media publisher. What Spotify was historically, right, was a media platform. Now, what do I mean by media platform? YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, maybe some other platforms. I forgot the name of that platform that used to do a lot of porn. Tumblr used to do a lot of porn. They were platforms, media platforms. Spotify now is trying to grow into being a media publisher. Now, here's the difference. Back in the day, pretty much all the media was publishers. Television was a publisher. Radio was a publisher. Print media was publishers. Magazines was publisher. I had Dominic Huff on the other day. He's a media publisher, right? What Spotify is trying to do now is go from a platform into a publisher. What's interesting is that the internet destroyed publishers, and now the internet's going back into publishing. So for them to be publishers, they got to bring on these people that create content, right? And they're creating content on behalf pretty much of the platform. So the platform essentially is publishing their content. So the difference is that if Justin Bieber puts his music on Spotify, Spotify is not seen as a publisher of Justin Bieber's music. But by Spotify having Rogan on, Spotify is seen as the publisher, right, of Joe Rogan's platform. Even though Spotify probably doesn't publish his show, but that's the perception now, is that they're the publisher of that particular media. So now they're changing their business model. But why are they changing their business model? Is because they got to grow in that particular area. So the challenge for Spotify is that they've essentially done all they can do as a platform. Everybody that's going to put their music on Spotify has their music on Spotify. I'm going to show you with actual documentation that they got people on Spotify that's literally doing millions of views per month. All right. So people think Joe Rogan's big. Joe Rogan's really not the biggest person on Spotify, even though the people that are fans of Joe Rogan is going to try to tell that story. I'm going to show you that Joe Rogan's, he's in the mix. But there's people on Spotify you ain't never heard of that's doing millions of views, not millions of views. They're doing millions of listeners on Spotify. So Spotify is trying to grow in the area of publishing. For them to do that, they got to bring on people like Rogan that already have an audience. They also got a relationship with a guy named DJ Academics. They're going to bring on more people. Where I think they're going long term is what we see on YouTube right now, which is what's going on right now, where you have regular people like myself publishing content and putting that content on Spotify. That's where I think they're going. But what they're trying to do first is build out that publishing part of their business to now where we can justify having the average regular Joe like Diamond Dave publishing content on behalf of Spotify, right? So that's where I think they're going. So they're trying to grow that particular area. Now, what I want to show you is this article. This came out in 2014. And what they were talking about is platform or publisher, whatever you call it, the future of media. And what we were talking about in TechCrunch is that you're going to start seeing platforms go into more of a publishing model. The challenge is that if you publish this content, are you responsible for the content? Because people are going after Spotify for what this guy has said. The challenge is that they're not even going after Spotify for what he said on Spotify. So the issue is that the stuff that they're going after Rogan now got nothing to do with what he said on Spotify. This is old stuff that now Spotify may take the heat for. Why? Because Spotify is publishing this. So what Spotify did is they went and took a lot of his old shows off. So this is how it works. So this is the problem, is that by Spotify archiving all his content, they now are being shown as being responsible for that old content. Now, this is what I don't understand from Spotify's standpoint. You're a multi-billion-dollar company. I know you got a big staff. Why not go through and essentially have your assistants or create some type of program to go through all his content? If you find anything objectionable, don't put it up. Why just dump all his content on the platform, but you don't even know what's on the platform? That's what don't make a lot of sense to me. But that's what they chose to do, just to accelerate getting this guy on the platform. Now, this idea that me as the publisher, right? I'm sorry, me as a platform, I'm not responsible for the content. It may work and it may not work. And I'm going to show you somebody that it didn't work for. So all my people that know about torrents and things of that nature, you know about the Pirate Bay. Bunch of Swedes. The United States got so mad at those guys, they got the Swedish government to come try to arrest these dudes. They went to Asia, did all kind of stuff to try to avoid prosecution. It really didn't work because the United States want to find you, they're going to find you. They essentially were a website that just hosted links to content. They were just a platform, right? But the United States and the RIAA and whoever said that, well, the links to the content that you're posting is pirated content. So we want you to take the links down. They told the people not taking nothing down. It's not our content. We're just a platform, and we have links to content that you say is pirated. But it got nothing to do with us. In fact, the content links aren't even, it's hosted on so many different computers. It's impossible for you to go after one direct person because essentially it's been distributed amongst all these people. That was really the power of this particular type of platform. But they came after the guys that ran this. And then they got taken down and they put it back up somewhere else. But these guys were quote unquote fugitives from justice for years because why? They was trying to avoid prosecution that was being pushed by a lot of these U.S. corporations that wanted to go after them, right? For allowing people a way to get pirated content that was primarily U.S. based media. But they were just a platform. So as a platform, they try to say, well, we're not responsible for the content on the platform. But the U.S. government and, you know, the copyright law said, yes, you were. And they went after these guys. So you got to kind of understand is that Spotify is in a tough position because they may want to say, well, you know what, we're a platform. We're not responsible for what Joe Rogan says. And people may say, well, yes, you are. Because essentially you're giving him the lane to get broadcast to all these different people. So as the publisher, you can't just act like you're a platform. Because like YouTube's not responsible for what I say. If I say something YouTube doesn't like, they can just take me down. But they're not really seen as responsible because they're a platform. They're not a publisher. Spotify's trying to turn into a publisher, and that can cause issues for them, right? As a publisher, because they're trying to grow in this particular area. And what I want people to understand is that Joe Rogan can impede their growth. And so if Joe Rogan impedes their growth in this area, we got to ask ourselves, what are they going to do with Joe Rogan? Because he's not there because they like him. He's there to serve a purpose in their growth plans. If he can't serve that purpose, then he may be gone. So if I'm Joe Rogan, I'm on the phone with my lawyer this weekend, and I'm trying to figure out if they fire me, do I get to keep the $100 million? I don't care about nothing else. All I need to know is if they let me go and they want to get out of this deal, do I still get my $100 million? Because I take my content and go somewhere else. That's all I would be asking if I were Joe Rogan. Because it seems like they trying to create momentum against this guy. And I wonder how much of this can Spotify take before they say, you know what, it just makes sense to just cut this guy and try to build this based on somebody else. So they may put all their marketing money behind DJ Academics or whoever else they decide to put up there. Now, here's the next thing I want to show you, right? Let me go to that. My bad on the Pirate Bay. Joe Rogan, right? So here's this particular article from 2021. They talk about how this has been a massive success. So we got to talk about the $100 million that Joe Rogan experienced, yada, yada, yada. They say now, according to Business Insider, a leaked internal newsletter says that the Joe Rogan podcast accounted for nearly 5% of the total podcast listen when it was made available in September of 2020. My challenge is I cannot get numbers from Spotify as of yet on how much of the listening audience is Joe Rogan responsible for. I want that data because I want to know the impact on their overall listening audience. I can't get that data from them, and that's very, very frustrating. However, in their division that they're calling originals and exclusive performance, they're showing you that the Joe Rogan is around 5.5%. This consumption hours in millions, right? Growth month over month, because it just started, they couldn't really give you that data. But his percentage is 4.5, and of all these particular things, which is called Parcast, The Ringer, Gimlet. Never heard these shows before, but I'm not on Spotify. My bad about that. I'm not on Spotify. He's responsible for 4.5%. So what they're saying is that he had a really, really big impact on Spotify initially. My challenge is that I can't get Spotify to give us data, right? Current data, because this is a 2021 September on his impact on this overall originals and exclusive performance division. But this is what they're trying to build out. They're trying to build out why? Because we got to grow in this particular area, because essentially we've hit the wall as far as music. Everybody that's going to put their music on Spotify has put it on Spotify, right? Anybody that don't have their music on Spotify, it's not going to matter anyway, right? Because they just not that type of artist, or they got an exclusive deal with somebody like Apple Music where they never going to put their music on Spotify anyway. But what we were saying is that initially he had the number one share of the originals and the exclusive performance. But what I don't like about this number is looking at the millions of consumption hours, it still is only 4.5%. So what I'm seeing is that this particular area is so broad that a guy can do 4.9 million in consumption hours, right? And that's monthly, and he's still only 4.5% of the share. So even though they paid this guy $100 million, I'm thinking he would come in and take 10% or take 15%. But he only took 4.5%. But like I said, these numbers are incomplete because they're early numbers, because we still don't have his percentage of growth month over month because they were early numbers. I want to see the updated data, because I want to know if I'm paying you $100 million and I'm paying you essentially an exclusive deal. I need you to come in and take the audience. That's what I'm bringing you in for, right? That's like me bringing a guy in that's supposed to be a big time scorer and I pay him a lot of money, right? He's supposed to be a 30.9 score and I'm bringing him a lot of money. And then I bring you in and pay you the money. You ain't give me 30 a night. I need to figure out what's going on because I'm paying you to get this result. So that's my question. But like I said, this is going to be preliminary data and I need to get some further updated data. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. So this article right here, because I want to show people about music. So this is from 2020. So it's a little old, but we still don't have the 2021 numbers yet. Which streaming people have the most listeners? Okay. Now we're going to start at the top. We ain't going to start at the bottom because I want to show you the kind of numbers that artists are doing on Spotify. Justin Bieber got 66 million people a month, right? He doing 66 million a month. Okay. Billie Eilish, who I don't listen to her music, she does 60.67 million a month. Okay. She got 20-something million Spotify followers. Ed Sheeran, who I know who he is, but don't listen to his music. He's doing 60.51 million people a month, or monthly listeners on Spotify. Right? This guy named J Balvin, never heard of the dude. He got 55 million a month. Never heard of this woman. Right? Khaled, never heard of this dude. And I thought I was into music like that. He got 55 million a month. I know who The Weeknd is. Weeknd got some cold music. I know who Post Malone is. Post Malone got some of the worst music I heard in my life, but that's my opinion. He doing 53 million a month. Don't know who Dua Lipa is. Everybody know who Drake is. Everybody know who Nicki Minaj is. I like Maroon 5 music. Don't know who this woman is. Don't know who Halsey is. Eminem, he older than me. He doing 45 million a month, right? And most people consider Eminem old. He's still getting 45 million monthly listeners. Selena Gomez, Shawn Mendes. These people are in the mid 40s. And I'm going to show you something about Daddy Yankee. And this is what I was talking about. Somebody can be a monster in music, and because it's not your kind of music, you ain't never heard of them. So I'm from Orlando. Orlando got the third most Puerto Ricans in the world. You got Puerto Rico, you got New York City, and you got Metro Orlando. Daddy Yankee is a reggaeton artist. Average person don't even know what reggaeton is, right? He's a reggaeton artist, been around for a very long time. He doing 42.8 million. Got 16 million Spotify followers. Average person don't even know what reggaeton is. So it just goes to show you that somebody can be a monster in music and you don't know him. So a lot of people that's fans of Joe Rogan, they think Joe Rogan is the top person on Spotify. He may be the top person on the podcast and on the original content. But when it comes to that music, he not even up there with the top people, right? And there's people that most people have never heard of that's pushing north of 40 million. So you got to understand is that Spotify, they want to diversify into original content because I really think they peaked out in this particular area. Now let's go into their earnings, which they just popped out, right? So let's go back to the chart. They put their earnings out and they sold off real tough, right? Sold off real tough on their earnings. Now, what I want you to understand is that here's we go into it. They went 17% down as user forecast overshadows revenue beat. They beat revenue. Revenue grew 24% to 2.69 billion. That's in British pounds. No, I'm sorry, that's in euros. Beating an expected 2.65 billion, right? So they beat revenue. Premium revenues were up and the earnings per loss improved, right? To negative 0.21 from 0.66. So we've talked about before, companies, they still not positive on earnings per share, right? Driving the revenues, but the earnings per share is still not positive. However, it's slowing down from a growth standpoint. So you're looking at a company in which they drive a revenue, but earnings per share is not positive, but we're seeing a slowdown in growth. So it's forecasting a monthly users of 418 versus a consensus of 422 and premium subs of 183 million versus an expected of 185. Revenues are in forecasting line of expectations of 2.6 billion. This is why they sold off, right? They hit their numbers. They improved their earnings per share. But the reason why they sold off is because they got it down. Now, they may be giving out a conservative guidance so they can beat it, right, in the next quarter. But like I said before, is that you're looking at a company where they're not positive in earnings, right? Their revenue's going up, but why are you owning this stock if we don't ever think that they're going to be positive from an earnings standpoint? Now, let's look at something real quick, right? Where is this at? So we look at September 2021, F3 2021. We're looking at EPS beat miss revenue year over year. So what I want to show, let's start with 2021. Year over year growth, 29, 24, 25. So I want to repeat that. 29, 24, 25. Last one was 16.49. So what am I seeing? I'm seeing a decline year over year growth, right? I'm seeing a decline in year over year growth. Now we are seeing an incline in revenue, right? They are beating. And what am I seeing? The beat is starting to decline. So I see a 0.19, I see a 0.37, I see a 0.21, and I see a 0.18, right? So we're understanding is that it looks like growth is starting to stop. And I think that if they can't figure out how to get their growth back, along with this issue with Rogan, it can cause a challenge in their stock price. Because what we're seeing is a company that was priced for growth that looks like it's starting to decline. They sunk money behind Rogan to try to build out this particular division that they got right now, right? Original exclusive performance. They're trying to build out this division because they want the growth to come from here. But if he can't help them and he becomes a headache for them, they got to get rid of this guy. So what I want you to understand is as a trader, you need to start observing these type of situations. We have a lot of situation going on with Spotify. So let's say this Joe Rogan situation was going perfect. They still got it down, right? We're still starting to see year over year. And there's something else I wanted to show you. Here we go right here. Okay, Spotify revenue growth percentage. What we're seeing right here is, let me go here, is quarter 3 2020, they did 13%. Quarter 3 2020, quarter 2, they did 13. Quarter 3 2020, they did 14. Quarter 4 2020, they did 17%. We go into quarter 1 of 2021, we did 16%. We look at the comparable, the 23 of quarter 2 to the 13. We look at the 27% to the 14, right? We look at the 24% to the 17. Now we go to quarter 1 of 2022. We look at a 13%. So what are we seeing? From quarter 1 of 2021 to quarter 1 of 2022, we're seeing a drop off. Next quarter, was 23%. The year-to-year comparables of growth rate is starting to get challenged. So last year, quarter two, they did 23%. They're guiding down, which means what? Most likely they're not going to hit that 23%, and we don't want them to hit it. We want them to exceed it. Because what we want with most companies is we want them to grow at a percentage every year for no other reason than the cost of inflation means you got to grow your company every year by a certain percentage. So one of the biggest challenges that a lot of these companies are having is that because of the pandemic, especially with a particular business like this, a lot of people ran to a lot of these online platforms. As a result, they attracted a lot of capital. What we're seeing is that for some reason, people are not as attracted to a lot of these online platforms that they were during this pandemic little period that we were on for the past 2 years. So what we're seeing is that 2020, their year to year was higher in 2021. Looks like a great scenario. Now what we're seeing is declining growth. But they were priced for growth. So all their price targets going out 6 to 12 months was based around them growing as a company. We don't believe that growth is there anymore, irregardless of this Joe Rogan situation. Now you add this Joe Rogan situation in, let's say they get rid of him. He is doing the numbers. He just ain't doing the numbers I think he should be doing. If they have to get rid of this guy, now what happens to that division? Also, what happens to the growth? Don't get caught up in the people that are saying, well, if they get rid of Joe Rogan, they're going to stop listening. It's not about that, right? It's about if he leaves Spotify, he takes an audience with him, right? So you got to understand is that if we were pricing this for growth, even with Rogan, they were having growth issues because he's been there since last year. So even with Rogan, they're having growth issues. What will it look like if they have to let the guy go? So now they're in a bad situation. These are the kind of things that you want to start looking at. So what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is look at them and try to figure out what's going to be my scenario in which they can work their way out of this situation, which I don't see how they're going to do it. Then how is the market going to react if they report next quarter and they don't even hit their conservative guidance, right? And also, what do I think is going to happen in between now and them reporting in another 90 days? And when you start to look at situations from this standpoint, now you're starting to think like a trader. So it's these fundamental issues that are going to cause a challenge to the chart. The chart's already breaking down. This ain't going to help them. And this is what I want to try to help you see, right? So the reason why I want you to be on these type of videos is so you can get this kind of explanation that's going to be different than talking about conservative, liberal, cancel culture. I don't care about any of that stuff. Right? I'm here to make money. I'm not here to argue over this stuff. The guy saying, like I said, I've been around guys like Joe Rogan before. I know just how they think, right? They're really not this out of the world thinker. They just, to dumb people, they seem like these out of the world thinkers. So somebody that's actually smart, Joe Rogan just a regular dude, man. No disrespect to his work ethic, because it took him 10 years to get to where he at. He put the work in because he really supposed to be a comedian, but I don't see nothing funny about the guy. But I'm glad he was able to reposition, pivot, and to get into a lane to get paid. But like I said, if I'm Joe Rogan, I'm on the phone to my lawyer right now trying to figure out if they fire me or they let me go, do I still get to keep my $100 million? That's all I need to know. Other than that, and then I would just go in there and say whatever I got to say because I don't care. So that's the analysis, right? So we're going to get the way to action plan. Look at the chart. Do you understand what the chart is breaking down at? What do you see as a resistance points? What do you see as a support points? That's what I would do if I was in that situation. The next thing I would do is I would go listen to not only the earnings call that they just recently did, I will listen to the earnings call a quarter before this one, right? So I will listen to quarter 4, 2021. I would maybe listen to quarter 3, 2021. I will listen to those particular earnings calls and I would try to understand what are they talking about, right? Then what I would do is I would try to figure out based on their balance sheet and their financials, right? How do they normally report quarter to quarter? Because some companies have seasonally slow quarters. And if they have a seasonally slow quarter, that would happen even if they were doing well. And on top of that, they're slowing down in growth. It can really harm them when they got to report that. And then I would try to create a narrative based around what direction I think this company is going based on that. And then I would just continue to sit back and observe it. Does this Joe Rogan situation start to unwind on them where they can't control it, where they got to just cut bait? Is he able to stay there? Is he able to try to figure out how to drive more revenue? Like I said, can I get more up-to-date numbers on his actual performance? Because they're paying this guy $100 million. He needs to get more than 5% of that market. Don't stay overpaying the guy for performance, in my opinion. But I'm happy he getting the money. These are the things I would observe, and I would cut all the other chatter out about liberal, Democrat, conservative, Republican. I would cut all that out because I don't have nothing to do with making money. When people gump on the internet and say, well, you know what, if they get rid of this guy, I'm not going to listen to Spotify anymore. Nobody cares because they don't matter. It's about scale. One person on the internet saying they're going to stop listening to Spotify to get rid of Joe Rogan. My question is, it's not enough of y'all listening to him anyway. That's why he's only pulling 5% of the market. So nobody can. That doesn't mean anything. It's what is the actual data telling you. Those are the same people that said they're going to start watching the NFL. NFL still hasn't gone anywhere. So don't get distracted by that. Look into the data, look into the numbers, and ask yourself, what are the numbers telling you? And that's where you're going to figure out how to play this to put yourself in a position to where you could potentially make money out of this situation. So that's pretty much going to be the analysis. And like I said, this was an impromptu show because this just came across the desk late this afternoon. But I wanted to jump on it because these are the kind of situations that get me excited because I see the opportunity, right? And that's all I see is the opportunity. I don't care about anything else that's going on because I don't care about Joe Rogan nor Spotify nor none of the rest of this stuff. So we got any questions before we get up on out of here? Yeah, definitely. So PhD says, chaos, volatility, how can I financially benefit? Definitely. That's all I care about. So he's preparing for a cleanup so he can draw the big names to his podcast. What big names does he have on, though? So with Joe Rogan, I think, to me, he made his name by doing like countercultural stuff. Now he does. So let me restate that. He does have some big people on, but like I don't think so. From an artist standpoint, the artists we talked about, I don't think he's a good fit for them. He had Elon on to me before Elon was that guy when Elon was smoking weed on the show. That was like 4 years ago. But to me, he's more counterculture. That's kind of where he niched himself. Because I remember when he first kind of started that show, all they talked about was doing drugs. But we got to see how it plays out. Right? So we got any questions, hit me up in the comments about this particular player, where you think this situation is going. Yeah, GC. But I don't really think the top artists on Spotify will leave because of this guy. I just don't really think they care like that. But I could be wrong. So we got to see how it plays out. Because a lot of people, we look at the top people on Spotify, they're eating off of Spotify. Most artists are not eating off of Spotify. If you're doing 45 million listeners a month on Spotify, you're eating off of there. So I mean, I wouldn't care who they had on Spotify. If I was getting money like that on Spotify, they could put whoever they got on there because I wouldn't care. It ain't got nothing to do with my paycheck. For the people that's not really eating, or they feel like their conviction is so high where they don't want to have nothing to do with it, I get it. I get it. But I wouldn't get off Spotify for that. Definitely. That's the thing I was talking about. A lot of these platforms were booming because of the situation, and they were being priced for that. And this is weird to me, but I haven't been in the market like a decade. I don't understand why we're pricing these things based on them blowing up because of a situation. It's not based on the fundamentals of the company. It's not based on the fact that they got a competitive advantage. It's really just based on the situation, but they got price based on that. And that's why I'm starting to realize how this market actually works, to where they claim they got a long-term view of these companies, but they really can't. Because for a lot of these companies that blew up because of the pandemic, it was no way they was going to be able to sustain their growth targets because they only blew up because of the pandemic. So eventually they got to come back down. And it's also, as that rate starts to go up, the cost of capital becomes a lot more expensive. It's very unlikely that they continue to get capitalized like that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that gasoline up though. You know, but that dude's a monster artist. But most people ain't never heard of Daddy Yankee. You know, most people, you know, it's amazing how many people inside the United States have never seen a Puerto Rican in real life. Because there's not a lot of them. You know, so that just, you know, I'm just getting people to understand is that you can be big, big, big in music, and average person don't even know who you are. Right? It's like, it's, you know, half the people on that Spotify list, I never heard these people. They doing 45 and 50 million views, not views, I keep saying listeners a month. Yeah, you know Drake up there. You know, Drake eating off all platforms. Yeah, so he could go back to YouTube, but does YouTube have $100 million for him? But like I said, does he get to keep the money? So if I get to keep the money, I don't care where I go. My question is, if they get rid of me, do I get to keep my bread? Yeah, Head and Shoulders. So I'm glad you see it. So we see that chart breaking down. So let me see any other comments. She left Spotify, but what kind of numbers was she doing? You know, because we showed you the top people, right? So those are the people that, you know, Bieber says, I don't want to be on Spotify because of Joe Rogan. It's going to cause waves. Because Bieber pushing, you know, probably 50 million a month on Spotify. That's going to be a different response than NDRE. No disrespect to NDRE and what she do. You know, so that's the thing is that she's not a legacy artist that don't do numbers anymore. She's had a good musical career, but she's never done numbers. Now, people try to talk about Neil Young. You know, Neil Young Neil Young has sold 75 million records in his life, right? Back before there ever was an internet. So I don't diminish Neil Young because he's not the guy now, because the guy sold 75 million records. I don't think NDRE has ever done numbers similar to that in any era that she ever was in. You know. So why do we think they would be a good play long term if their growth is contracting now? So where does the growth come from? Right? Where would the growth come from to make them a good long-term play? And we say long-term at what price point? And I'm not saying you're incorrect. I'm just saying those would be my questions. So long-term, how do we define long-term? Because I'm looking for them from a bearish standpoint over the next 2 to 3 quarters, right? So long-term, do we mean 0 to a year, 2 years to 5 years, 0 to 20 years, right? And then why would they be good long-term if they're already having growth issues? So where does the growth come from to where the share price continues to appreciate? Because what we're seeing is that they're having challenges being positive on earnings, which to me is their first big obstacle. How can we return positive earnings? They're also having cash flow issues, and I didn't want to really get technical with the discussion, but that could be another issue for them. So we talk about their long-term would be a good play. How we define the long-term, in my opinion. Yeah, NDRE, you know, she doing her thing, but she not where the top people is at. Well, they were trying to go into original content. That was their play. Because they've kind of topped out with music. Pretty much everybody that's going to put their music on Spotify has done it. They've already built their audience. Right? So that's that particular division of their company has pretty much been, it's to me, it's almost like it's plateaued. And so that's the problem is that when you're a company and you plateaued, why would we put new capital into you? Spotify needs new capital. So the way to get new capital is to create another division called original content, put on a superstar like Joe Rogan, and have him bring in that new capital. But what we're seeing is that even with him, he's not necessarily bringing a big audience. Like I said before, is that he does 14 million a month. He's the biggest one amongst them, but compared to the people in music, he wouldn't even be in the top 20. See what I'm saying? And I've listened to it may be one Justin Bieber song I like. Justin Bieber doing 45, 50 million listeners a month. Not a year, a month. So it's just a big difference. Rogan is not bringing that kind of audience that I think maybe they thought he was going to bring. You probably had that initial bump because it was new, but he may have already plateaued. And so that's something they may have to look at. So with a big drop between Q4 2021 and Q2 21, I expect even more sell off before going back to the previous range. Yeah, we got to see how it goes. But if you look at their chart, they are, in my opinion, they're already starting. They're breaking down a lot off that high point. So my question first is, how come nobody wanted it above that particular price? Right? Because if we believe they're a long-term play, it would make more sense. So let's go ahead and get into it. If we believe they're a long-term play, we want to buy at 350 because we believe it's continuing to go up. So how come when they got to 350, everybody decided that they didn't want to be in this deal anymore? They started selling it. So it sold from 350 all the way down to 223, which is almost $100 off the share price. Right? So that's the thing. And Rogan was already on board at this point. And nobody wanted it at this price. You understand me? So if we really believe in this long-term goal, it's cheap at this price because we believe in 5 years it's going to be $500-600. So that's what people really got to ask themselves. Yeah, he can take his audience to YouTube, but like we talked about before, is YouTube going to pay him that? So he went to Spotify because they had the bag. Right? They had the bag for him. Right? So does he get to keep the money and then go to YouTube? If he does that, then I say do it because you get to keep the money. But if they wanted to get out of that deal and he don't get to keep the money, or is the money still based on performance? So it's a deal where they pay him $20 million a year, I guess, for 5 years. Does he have performance metrics that he has to hit to keep the money? And, you know, do we know what those are? Right? So that's the thing. So to the Rogan fans, Rogan is he's their whole world. But we showed on Spotify, there's some people on Spotify doing some serious numbers that the average person has never heard of. I never heard of that dude, Khalid. Dude doing almost 50 million viewers. I'm not viewers. I keep saying that, listeners a month. Never heard of the dude. But that just goes to show you how music can be in a lane, and that guy can be a superstar in that lane doing crazy numbers. And, you can have no idea who they are. So we got any questions before we get up on out of here? Yeah, so let me see. Go back to Bieber. Yeah, Bieber's doing 60 million monthly listeners with 33 million Spotify followers. Right? And these are numbers from 2 years ago, right? But they're 2-year-old numbers. So Billie Eilish, who I know who she is, she's doing 60 million monthly listeners with 21 million Spotify followers. I know who Ed Sheeran is. So these people are doing crazy, crazy numbers. So they're getting paid off streaming, right? They're getting paid off streaming because they get deals with their record label to put their music, to furnish their music to Spotify. And they pretty much get paid from the label. So they don't get paid. They don't care about Spotify money because they're getting paid from the label to furnish that music. So JR's paid up front. So he was paid up front. He was paid, he's getting paid $20 million a year. But my question is, he's only getting 5% of the podcast market or the podcast viewership, right, on Spotify. Right? So how is he more profitable from a standpoint of where he's not really dominating the market? He's bringing in 14 million. But Spotify has to pay him directly, right? They don't really pay artists for music. They will pay a big artist if they have the name. But the question is, Bieber, even if they're paying him, is bringing the audience. Where's Joe Rogan's audience? So he's doing 14 million a month. That's what we talked about. He's got 5% of the overall podcasting market on Spotify. Does that justify paying the guy $20 million a year? Because I would assume he will bring a bigger audience than that. And I'm assuming that he would also dominate their podcasting space. So he wouldn't just be 5%, he'd be like 10% or greater. Right? So we're still seeing a lot of, that means 95% of that original content audience is going to a lot of other people. So that's the question. So, I like to actually look at the numbers. No disrespect to you, Hello Love. I like to actually look at the numbers and try to analyze off the numbers. And so based on the numbers, I'm trying to ask myself, why isn't he bringing in a bigger audience? I've never seen anything similar except with a publicly owned company. So that's the thing. So this is why, I think Joe Rogan, this is the play, and it may be a good play, it may be a bad play. I don't know all the internals of the deal, but what I would have thought would have been a better play, especially for Joe Rogan's type of content, is to do what Alex Jones did. And even though you make less money and it's not going to be guaranteed money, you own everything. And so it don't matter what your content is. But what Joe Rogan did is he built up a name and he built up an audience, and then he furnished his content to a publisher. Nothing wrong with that, because they're going to pay you $20 million a year. And Joe Rogan has been doing this for 10 years. So I don't down him for getting that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But if you look at Limbaugh, a lot of people don't like Limbaugh. But what Limbaugh did was, and he was running a different model because Limbaugh came off radio, which was a different game back then. He created his own company called Excellence in Broadcast. He essentially produced his own show, and then he sold the syndication rights to Premiere. The Premiere syndicated his show to all the particular radio stations all across the country. But he owned the show. But you never would have got, people can pull dirt on Limbaugh, stuff he said on the radio, but it never would have been this type of stuff because you can't talk like that on radio, as the FCC will fine you. And the problem with you being fined in the FCC is that no radio station is going to pay you and also pay your fine. So I just think we're in this era of the internet where people think they can say anything and there's no repercussion. And the problem with the internet is that it's easier to pull dirt on people because unlike an old radio show, which can be difficult to find, if you set it on the internet, somebody got it. Right? Now, they pulled dirt on Limbaugh for stuff he said when he was trying to become part of an NFL deal. I knew they could find anything on anybody once they did that because it was radio stuff. And I was like, how did they find radio stuff from 6-7 years ago? But they found it. But with this internet stuff, if you ever set it on the internet, somebody gonna find it. So I haven't seen a comparable deal because Spotify and these type of platforms are relatively new. So we're in uncharted waters. And the problem is that there really aren't, to me, hard and fast rules over what you can say on the internet. That's why we got people still saying so much crazy stuff on the internet today. Where if you're on radio and you're on television, there's certain stuff that you just cannot say. Just like Rogan on the video I showed at the top of the show, he doing all that cursing. You can't curse like that on the radio. They get you off of there. It don't matter how big you are. You won't be on there anymore. But on the internet, you can use, you can just say whatever you want to say because there are no rules against it, at least not yet. So I don't see anything similar to this, that I would think is comparable, similar, but not comparable. If, those two words make sense. He may be, he may not be. I just expected him to pull bigger numbers than that, right? Based on his audience or based on the people on the internet that said they listen to the guy's show. But you know how the internet is. People say all kind of stuff. Yeah, definitely. And he may still get his, he get his big payday. Because Joe Budden got a big audience. And what I like about Budden, similar to Joe Rogan, is the rap game wasn't working for Budden. Budden got into the podcast game, built it out. He used to do that show with academics, flipped that into his own show and kept flipping it. Budden was a failed rapper. And that's why I tell people all the time, don't let people think because of your age or because of your failures, you can't make it big. You just got to keep trying. And Budden, because he got a really good voice for radio or for podcasting, he realized, okay, I can get into this lane and there's money here. And he blew up and he's way bigger in that lane than he ever would have been in music. Because to me, the dude really can't rap. So he would have been a struggling rapper the rest of his life. But he just kept doing stuff. He was also one of the first guys to do social media far as with the rap, in the rap space. He was an early mover in that. But I give him credit for just continuing to just keep trying something until he figured something out. And he blew up. He's way bigger now in the podcasting space than he ever would have been in music. Because he probably don't even own his music. That's how bad the music industry is. No problem, PhD 2012. Yeah, they might. That might work for them. You know, and they may make that their lane. You know, but the issue is that now we're in the social media platform era. We're moving back now into publishing. But what's interesting is that the platforms destroyed the publishers, and now they're realizing that we got to go back into publishing to make money, to make new money. So now we're going into the publishing game. And the question we got to ask is that as a publisher, are you responsible for the content that you're publishing? Because, you know, if people that are old enough remember, if you were writing for a newspaper, that newspaper was responsible for the content that they put out on your behalf. Same thing with television, same thing with radio. They were responsible for it because they were publishing it. So that's what we got to ask ourselves. Is Spotify responsible for the fact that Joe Rogan has said these things on these shows and it's on their website? Or are they just a platform and they just host this content? Right? So that's the question that we got to start asking ourselves in this new era that we're in, to where people just think you can say whatever you want to say on the internet as long as it makes them money or it drives views or whatever, because we understand that a lot of these platforms are, they make people slaves to the algorithm. So people will say whatever they got to say as long as it gets them the attention, because the algorithm rewards them with views and money. So I just say anything. That's how old girl got caught up with that Cardi B thing. You know, it got her attention. Even though she lost the case, she get attention off of it. So if the goal is just to get the attention from the platform, it don't matter what I say, because the 4 million or the million that she got to pay, that's small compared to the money that you're going to make because of the attention you get from it. And I don't think people can understand that, because the platform rewards the attention. You know, YouTube ain't tripping the fact that she lost that case. They don't care. She's driving attention, which is driving ads, right? Which YouTube makes money off ads, and they break her down what they make, and we just keep flipping this thing. So I just think that's the era that we're in. So it incentivizes people just to say whatever they got to say. So that's the thing, is that, you know, Joe Rogan, he's showing people that you get attention by creating this kind of content. So, you know what I'm saying? So if he doesn't get quote unquote canceled, the next person is going to do the same thing. Why? Because that's how you get the attention, and the platform rewards the attention. That's why people say all kind of crazy stuff on social media. Why? Because the platform's rewarded, right? They don't punish you, they reward it. So then let's figure out the next thing I got to say. The problem is that you're going to have an environment where that's all people want to do. They don't really want to create good content. They just want to say, what's the inflammatory thing I can say? But as long as you keep rewarding them, that's what they're going to keep doing. People here to get a reward. Something Erica talked about is 100% correct. I'm on YouTube to make money. I ain't trying to hide it from you. I'm here to get money, right? If you're not doing a YouTube to get money, you're doing it to get attention. If you're not doing it for one of the two reasons, why are you here? You're just doing it just to do it. That don't make no sense to me. Now, I know some people got YouTube platforms just because they like creating videos. You know, it's just something fun to them. But it's one of the two. So nobody's doing this just to do it under 99% of the circumstances. I don't care what they say. They're trying to get money. They're trying to get attention. So that's the thing. So I just think the way these platforms reward attention with money, it creates a behavior where I'll just say anything as long as it drives the attention. And this Cardi B situation, like I said before, is that she going to make so much money on the back end off of this. It don't matter that she got to pay that girl that money. That's why she kept it going as long as she could, because it was getting her attention, right? She was getting attention. And, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. But she got a big platform, you know, and that's not my but that's the thing, is that how we going to try to cancel Rogan but don't cancel her? And I'm not saying I want her to get canceled. What I'm saying is that to me, they in the same lane. It's provocative content. It is what it is. You know, I'm not mad at it. It's provocative content. She has an audience that likes that kind of content. It don't make sense to me, but I'm not her audience. All the drinking wine and stuff, I don't really get it, but that's not my lane. So sports may not be her lane, but I watch a lot of sports content. Everybody got their own lane out here. My lane is the markets. Her audience probably would get bored watching the kind of stuff I do. It is what it is. Definitely. Right? I don't know. I don't think she did it to get Cardi B's attention. She did it to get her audience's attention. Her audience is there, in my opinion, Ray Gunn, to hear that kind of content about celebrities. It's just the National Enquirer on the internet, right? And the National Enquirer was a major magazine brand for decades with that kind of content, right? So that's the thing, is that the audience likes that. There's an audience of people, primarily women, that like celebrity gossip. I don't see nothing wrong about it. That's what they like. It's what Cardi B was saying, is that some of the things the woman had produced were false and malicious, right? And she was able to convince a court of that. But I think a lot of what Tasha K did by doubling down on it was because it was profitable. And from a business standpoint, if you believe the long-term money is going to be greater than the money that you got to pay out now, it may make sense in business-wise. Because Tasha K wasn't going anywhere, even though she lost that case. Because what? It put eyeballs on her, which is what she needs. She has an eyeball-based platform. Some people's platforms is based on, I got to do scale. Joe Rogan got the same kind of platform. It's a scale platform. So whatever I got to do to create the scale, I got to do. My platform is not necessarily a scale platform. It may never be a scale platform, because there's not a big audience that wants to figure out how we can take a situation going on in the world and monetize it through the markets. It's a way bigger audience of people that want to figure out, well, what's going on with this celebrity, her baby daddy cheating on her, yada, yada, yada. And no disrespect to Cardi B. Cardi B admitted being a prostitute. So maybe some of the other stuff was incorrect, but Cardi B admitted to being, that's not false that Cardi B was a prostitute at one time. I don't know if she's a prostitute currently, but Cardi B admitted to being a prostitute. So maybe some of the other stuff was incorrect, but Cardi B admitted, and we can really get into it. Her and the other chick, who ain't gonna say her name, they used to line people up. I know people in New York that know that whole little crew they got over there. They from BX, they do their thing. The homegirl she from Brooklyn. But they used to line people. So when Cardi B got on the YouTube and said she used to line people, that wasn't a revelation to me. Because I know that's what they get into out there. But a lot of dudes been lined up trying to trick. This is what I say, though, people don't talk about, is where, they talk about the dudes that do stuff to women, but they don't talk about the women that set dudes up. But that's a whole other conversation that got nothing to do with the market. So I don't want to sidetrack it. Definitely, GC. That's what people want. I mean, I guess we call it opposing opinion, but see, this is the thing, Mr. Noor. Just because an opinion, I'm not talking about Rogan. Just because an opinion is opposing, don't make the opinion informed. So, like we talked about, and I did a video earlier this week, Joe Rogan would not bring an opposing opinion on what went on in Nazi Germany in the 30s and the 40s. He wouldn't bring that on, because that'd be the end of Joe Rogan. Wouldn't be no argument. That'd be the end of Joe Rogan. His show would be over that night. So Rogan knows what he's doing, and he understands what buttons he can push and keep his career going. So I don't think it's about the opposing opinion. That's about what opinion can I bring on that can be provocative to bring the eyeballs. But it ain't just, let me just find an opposing opinion. Now, he not that crazy, right? None of them dudes is. He got that much sense to know not to make that move, right? Because they told Whoopi to take 2 weeks off just because they don't like what she said. And that's a grown woman. See what I'm saying? So that's what I'm trying to get. A lot of us buy into these people just do whatever they want to do. No, they know what they're doing. This is deliberate. These are very intelligent people. I don't believe that you can build a career in media and not be smart. This stuff is very deliberate. They think about it. It's not, I'm just going to just do whatever. And I don't believe that. That's how they try to make it seem. And that's part of marketing. But no, I don't believe that because I know marketing too well. These people got teams, right? They got teams behind them. It ain't no one person. This one person making my content. These people too big. They got teams, right, behind them making that content. So they got producers that produce to figure out what kind of content they need to put out to hit this particular audience, right? It ain't just, I just wake up and just freestyle it. No, they got a team behind them. The biggest people on YouTube got teams. Yeah, I think she messed up, but Erica, I don't understand how and this is something that Bill Maher talked about. And, and he's Jewish. And he said that, you take a 60-plus-year-old woman and you kind of like suspend her for 2 weeks like she's in school. And he himself said, she just perceives it differently because of her background. But that's just the era we in right now, and Whoopi allowed them people to do it because, she may need the attention. We talked about before, she may need the attention because if I had a certain amount of money and I didn't agree with something they did in that situation, I'd just tell them people, peace out. You just never see me on the show again. I wouldn't come back with my head down, but that's me. Everybody different, because they even did that to Stephen A. Smith about 2 years ago behind something he said. Definitely, that's what I'm saying. They got teams. So these people got teams that come up with their content. These big podcasters that got YouTube platforms, they got whole teams. One dude, I forgot his name. Man, dude got a whole compound. They just sit in there and just do the podcast. So he got a big platform, but he got a whole like building, like a house that he's turned into an office. And everybody works on that podcast. So it ain't like he just wake up and feel like, man, I'm gonna do a video today. No, this stuff, they got it planned out. They got a marketing plan. They got a skit. Like this stuff is very deliberate. So no disrespect to Tasha K. She got a major platform and she's good at what she does. There are people that like that kind of gossip content. I'm not mad at her. It's just not, like I said, I watch sports. Her audience wouldn't watch sports content like I do. I'll be watching old games that came on 10 years ago. That's me. Yeah, she can walk. I don't know why she don't, though. But she could. As soon as they told me I was suspended, I'd have been out of there. Right? Especially for an honest mistake. And nothing I did maliciously. I didn't try. Just an honest mistake. And I apologize for it after the fact. Yeah, I'll be out of there. But that's me. Everybody different. I'd have been out of there. I think a lot of times when you spend that long in those kind of environments, you kind of probably build relationships and you scared that it could destroy the relationship. So I don't want to do it that way. But I wouldn't appreciate them people doing me like that. And I've been in this game going on 40, 50 years. I wouldn't appreciate that. But, that's how they do, folks. So Roscoe says she need that paper. She might. She might. I hope she got some money stacked up. The woman been in entertainment for 40 years. Done did movies and everything. Edge deep. I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know. Okay, so I didn't even know that. That's crazy. I believe she got 2 students. I know a house down the street from lead attorney. I'm trying to figure out what they need to do shows together. I'm trying to figure out what she tripping on that man like that. And he lived right down the street from her. And she tripping on that man like that. So that's how I know that's entertainment. Because if you got an issue, go on down there. Or have your husband go down there. So I know that's entertainment. Okay. So that gave me some real insight. Okay. Yeah, but I know that's a business for her. And I ain't mad at her. Get your money. Because all this social media stuff is short-lived unless you can get on that Joe Rogan level. So I just hope everybody that's getting money, get money. Get your money, stack it up, and put it in some hard assets because all this stuff is short-lived, But that stuff with Cardi B wasn't going to get rid of her. It just really made her bigger. So it might put more legs under her career because now she got a story of how she going to come out of that. And that's a good deal for her. So now she got a storyline of how she got to come out of this situation because of what happened with Cardi B. So it works. I'm not mad at her. But everything she said about Cardi B was not untrue because Cardi B admitted to being a prostitute. Right? We got video of her saying that. Now the rest of the stuff might not have been true, but that was true. You know, and I know a whole lot more about that situation over there. But, you know, we ain't going to go into that. This ain't a music gossip channel. So that's pretty much going to be it, man. So I appreciate everybody coming through. So I want to encourage everybody to get into these markets. I'm looking forward to Monday to seeing how Spotify trades. So I'm looking forward to Monday to seeing how it trades. I want to see how it rolls out, and then we're going to take it from there. So I'm going to have a short-term analysis, and I'm also going to have a long-term analysis. So if you got any questions, hit me up in the comments. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments. That's going to be for the people that watch the whole video. This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. I'll talk to you later.